Sound check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Sound check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Sound check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks, Lon. It sounds like the sound is good now. Sound check. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks, Lon. It sounds like the sound is good now. Hey, I didn't want to do that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, it's 10 a.m. We're on the air. Good morning, everybody. It's a sun is kind of out. It's a little chilly today. Nice full day. Nice day for a pumpkin spice latte, and might try to go swimming today. Actually, our pool is still open at Will Oaks for this weekend. Might try it. Might be crazy for trying it, but might do that. Well, anyway, we'll make the best day of it. And right now, it's time for. Okay, so today we're going to discuss urban or suburban. And the reason why I picked that topic for today, because there's been many articles written between many publications, whether it's the real estate professionals read Einman, okay? It could be on CNBC, the New York Times. And there's plenty of articles on my blog about people deciding to move to the suburbs. Now we are not a big city area. We have Norfolk. To me, that's considered with its tall buildings a city. I mean, you have the city of Portsmouth as well, but this article talking about moving from an urban area to the suburbs probably will be reached to people who are living in the larger cities, whether it's New York, whether it's Miami, whether it's Los Angeles, going up north to Seattle, the large cities that has mostly, I would say, IT jobs, dealing with the internet, dealing with social media marketing. And it could be other jobs as well. But basically, these cities that have these type of jobs where you're not manufacturing, in a plant or a factory, but you are working or you're in a situation where you could do the majority of your work at home with your computer. Basically, with today's technology, you basically could work anywhere. I mean, who would have thought 40 years ago that most people have computers with large screens and printers and scanners and fax machines, and a lot of that now is comprised into one item where a printer could fax, scan, email, and we could do this all now at home. The good thing about it, personally, is that it's a lot easier to do these things now, and you didn't have to be in the office to do these things. The bad thing is that you're always at work, okay? Because basically, I get calls on real estate, 8, 9 o'clock. Some people will call after 9, but they'll text me first and say, "Hey, can we talk?" So basically, you're always working. Before all this technology. Once you left the office at 5, that was it. If there was someone had to speak to you, it would be the next day. But now we have basically 24-hour service. Well, keep that in mind before we actually start talking about urban or suburban. I want to hand it off right now to my producer, Leonard. He's actually somewhere in Hampton right now.
Chris, I am in front of the American Theater in Phoebus, which is part of Hampton. They have a wonderful 2021 season starting up in February. Artists will be, to name a few, the Duke Ellington Orchestra, The Fifth Dimension, Melissa Manchester, C.C. Williams, Dee Dee Bridgewater, Diane Shure and so many more. This is their best season ever in my opinion, and you can view either inside the theater or virtually online. I'm very excited. To view more info, go to hamptonarts.net. The American Theater.
Thank you, Leonard. And basically, I love the American Theater. And there's no fixed genre that goes there. So you could hear from classical music to jazz artists to the Buddhist monks will be there. So the spectrum is big, but they're fantastic. I also saw the guy, I forgot his name now, but he does an imitation of Groucho Marx. He was wonderful. And it's very cozy. It's very intimate. It's brick walls going around, and you feel like you're in somebody's living room. And but this year, I think because of the pandemic, and I just want to say one more thing. I saw, before I came to Hampton, I lived in New York City. And years ago, during the Christmas season, my wife and I went to see the Vienna Boys Choir. And they're international, and they go to these large venues to sing Christmas carols, Christmas music during the holiday season. So we went to Carnegie Hall, okay? And then about 3 or 4 years ago, they came to the American Theater in Phoebus. And you know, like I said, they play the big venues, you know, the Carnegie Halls, and I don't know if they've been to Lincoln Center, but I mean, that's where they come. They go all around the world, and they came to Phoebus, the American Theater. I love it. I love it. So I love the Theater. They brought out their brochure. I received it this week of their new season. Fantastic. Diane Shure, my God, Diane Shure is unbelievable. Dee Dee Bridgewater, the Duke Ellington Orchestra, C.C. Williams, and that's just at the beginning of the season. I'm not even going through the whole catalog, and it's fantastic. So look at their website, see what shows are coming in, and this is going to start in February. Hopefully, things are a lot better by then. And they're going to take in precautions for COVID-19. And hopefully we have nothing that happens to stop that from happening in February. So shout out to the American Theater and Phoebus. Love them. All right. So let's go over what we're going to discuss today. And let me get out my little blackboard. Okay, and now let's get our work up on the screen. And here we go. I'm going to put myself in a little area. Oh, oops. There I go, down here. Okay. So lately it's been in the news. People are moving from the suburbs to the rural areas. We have to ask, is that a good move for me? And what factors should I consider concerning a move to the suburbs or rural area. Now, I included the rural area because, coming from a big city, we what I've experienced. I mean, when you come from a big city, you move out. A lot of people, in the '80s, like my parents, even early then, the '70s, they had a house built in the Poconos, and and that was their vacation home, their weekend home. But some people actually commuted from the Poconos to New York City. I mean, that was a hour and a half bus ride, each way. And if you weren't working in Midtown, where the bus terminal is, you would have to take trains all over. So you're talking about like 2 hours, and maybe even more. That's one way. So we're talking over 4 hours each day in travel time. But being that to own your own property and have it built, it was a lot cheaper than living in New York City. So I mean, going back to the '70s, well, always to live in New York City, or even the surrounding suburbs, surrounding boroughs, I should say, which was a little bit cheaper, was expensive. By the time it came to the 1990s to the 2000s, and now, it's outrageous. It's so expensive. So a lot of people made that move back in the '80s, even though there was a toil on doing your transportation. All right. And that was, again, before all of today's technology, where you could do a lot of work at home. I myself, when it came to our move down here, we made that decision because we had actually a beautiful rental of 2 stories of a brownstone, and it was a good neighborhood. We had nice friends. We lived, in walking distance of the Brooklyn Academy of Music. We could be in downtown Manhattan in 20 minutes, Midtown maybe 30, 35 minutes. So it was fantastic. It was a great location. We were right by the park. We were right by the Grand Army Plaza Library. It's like gigantic library, the botanical gardens, and it was really, really nice. But there was a time when we said we have to buy something, but I didn't want to buy something in Brooklyn where it would be a 2-bedroom for, at that time, $250,000. Now it would be even higher. I said, I want to go to a place, give me land, lots of land. I want to go to a place where it was more spacious, and we wouldn't have to spend so much for a house. And we looked around. Now, just for my story, my wife had a lot of family and friends in Hampton. For some reason, they migrated to this area. So we came down here and we liked it a lot. And I did a lot of research. And this is going back to the early 2000s. And I saw and read about a lot of developing that was going on in this area. And I said, this is going to be an area where in about 10 years, it's going to be really hopping and busy. And I was right. And so we decided to buy a house here, and eventually we moved down. But the other thing I want to talk about, and when we talk about factors, when you consider to move, my wife and I, we love classical music. In fact, that's how we met. That was our first date, going to a classical music concert. We saw a young Jessie Norman, who was making her name known at a mostly Mozart music festival at Lincoln Center. And we realized that wherever we would move, one of the factors that would help us choose if there was enough venues there for classical music, for jazz music, for shows, entertainments. And when I view the Hampton Roads area, we found that all here. Maybe a lot of people don't realize it, but you have three big venues in the Hampton Roads area. You have the Sandler Center, okay, which is relatively new. They were building it as we were moving down here. You have the Ferguson Center in Newport News, part of Christopher Newport University. Beautiful. It's a beautiful center. And you also have the Chrysler Hall in Norfolk. So you have three really nice venues for classical concerts, for ballets. You have the Virginia Opera House for opera. And then you have small venues like the American Theater in downtown Hampton, which has a very eclectic agenda. So there's a lot, and I could talk even more about where you could go here to hear some good music. But it had it here, and that helped us make the choice of choosing this area to move down to. And of course, one of the big issues when it comes to price, the cost of buying a house. I mean, at that time we were living in the brownstones. When we left, they were about $1 million to $2 million each. Now it's probably $2 to $4 million now for a brownstone. So we chose this area, and we felt comfortable because we had a lot of family and friends here. So there's a lot of factors involved when it comes to making that choice between the suburbs, the urban or the suburban area. Now, a lot of people here, after living in Hampton a while, and they want a little bit more space and land. Where do they go? They go out to the Isle of Wight, okay, right over the James River. You actually have to go further into Isle of Wight now because, like, if you go right over the water to Carrollton, it's so much development now there than it was when we first moved down. I mean, there's so many more condo developments, there's more shopping plazas. So that's already, you're not, you thought you get a little bit away from, like a suburb area, but it's building out there. You have to go out a little bit further onto Isle of Wight, where you have more of a lot of land surrounding your property. Also areas of West Suffolk. So some people who want that more privacy, more space between homes, will look into that area. So that area with that, and the price of a home per square footage, for instance, a 3 to 4 bedroom, maybe around 2,000 square feet. In your county, it might be $350,000 to $400,000. On the Isle of Wight, it might be like right below $300,000. So you're getting more for your buck when you go out to these areas, and you have a little bit more privacy. If you like more land, if you want to put on horse stables, there's parts of West Suffolk where you have properties like that and have horse stables on that. So that probably would be the analogy for this area, as opposed to, like, again, people who live in New York or Los Angeles, who want to get out of a large metro area. So again, let's take a look down at, get this up here and move down. Okay. So 2 new surveys indicate urban to suburban lean. And there has been much talk about the possibility that Americans are feeling less enamored with the benefits of living in a large city, and now maybe longing to open spaces. Give me land, lots of land, that suburban and rural areas provide. So I highlighted this area here. While migration trends were toward urban centers before the pandemic, again, everybody wanted to live in the city. We have action going on 24 hours. Stores are open up 24 hours. nightclubs that are open to 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Real estate thought leaders have predicted a suburban resurgence as homebuyers seek more space for social distancing. Now the data is supporting that theory. Coronavirus and work from home flexibility is sparking the trend reversal, Yoon said. More first-time homebuyers and minorities have also been looking to the suburbs for affordability, he added. Okay? So a lot of people now are making that decision, well, I could live in the city, I'll be able to get, coffee 24 hours at my local bodega. Just one fast little story. Let me make sure this is hitting up. You got both of me here. You got that. All right, you got that on the screen. When I was doing rentals in Park Slope, Prospect Heights area, I went to go see and look at a house or an apartment that this young man was living in. And I was looking around. I think it was a studio apartment, actually. And I said, how's everything working? I said, does the stove work? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, well, why don't you know? He goes, I never put the gas on. I said, you never put the gas on? He goes, yeah. He goes, he lived right over a bodega. He goes, if I want coffee, I just go downstairs. They're open 24 hours. I get some coffee. I could get breakfast there. When I come home from work, I just pick up food. So he never cooked. And that was a real bachelor. And he was a real city dweller, okay? He may have a hard time living in the suburb area or rural area where he, can't just walk downstairs and get something to eat or get breakfast, right downstairs. So these things you have to take into consideration when you're making the move. Some people are definitely, they're city people. They, even though they could find a beautiful home in the suburbs or rural area, they just love the action of the city. I will even say the smell of the city, waking up to the garbage trucks, picking up the garbage, that's part of them. And for them to making the change might be very, very difficult. So, and then there are people who, who have families and they say, well, while the kids are small, we could live in a small area. It's nice and safe. We found a house in the cul-de-sac and the kids could ride their bicycles back and forth and they could, play basketball in front and no one's going to bother them, and nice clean air. A lot of this has to be worked into it. All right. So like it says here, work out your priorities. What's missing where I am now? Is there anything I'll miss about where I'm living now? Make a list of your responses because this could help narrow down your priorities that you want your next location to meet. Now, that's personal. So basically what I just said, you would work that out. You would say, well, what do I love about the city? What do I not like about the city? What do I like about a suburban area? And you have to work this out. Now, this article that I found here, and I actually, this was in the Daily Press. And a lot of people have to take into a couple of things when they make this move, and basically two big factors, because you might say, hey, I'm making this great money, but if I go out to a suburb area where my living expenses might be brought down by 25%, well, actually, if your employer finds it out, it's not going to be that you're going to be fired, but they'll say, hey, you're living out this area where you don't have to spend that much money in paying for a mortgage, so we're going to lower your salary by that amount. And you have to find out what the policy would be with your employer if you do make that move, because there's a chance they may lower your salary. So you would have to have a long discussion or with your employer on that matter. And the article also talks about here, don't assume your salary will stay the same if your employer allows you to relocate, says Lizata Rainey Braxton, a certified financial planner and co-CEO at the 2050 Wealth Partners, a virtual financial planning firm. You may find your pay adjusted down if you move from an expensive area to a cheaper one. Check with your employer before making plans. So that's important. The article also talked about, the cost of moving. It's not cheap. We did it. I would say it probably ended up to be, because of course we're coming from New York down to Virginia was like over 300 miles. I think I ended up actually paying around $4,000 for it. And that's going back to 2007. So, think at least $5,000 right there. So you have that big expense of moving. You got to make sure you have that money tucked away for that move. You have to work that into the equation of whether or not you should move. But if you have it, you find out, especially if your employer doesn't care where you are, and if you could work more at home, and he's not going to lower your salary, it might be a really good move to do that if you're not really a city lover. That this is you only could live in a large metropolitan area, but a lot of suburbs areas, a lot of towns actually. Well, in the suburbs or the rural areas, like you'll find out, like in the town section, it's really, really nice. One thing I discovered in the Hampton Roads area, and they really don't advertise that much, is this lovely downtown Suffolk. I love downtown Suffolk. It's beautiful. A lot of nice stores and shops and restaurants, very well kept, very picturesque, and if someone who lived in a big city took a walk along the streets of downtown Suffolk, they said, "Hey, I could live here. There's enough going on." But if you're a younger person, you love the nightlife, you don't want your bar to close at 2:00 in the morning, it may not be for you. So a lot of this goes into consideration, and it's both. Just to review, I told you my story why we came down here. But basically, it's both a financial plan that you have to work out, and it's also a personal one if you're truly going to be happy with the switch. All right, so we are seeing a surge to the suburbs once this pandemic goes down, and I believe it will go down, and we get back to some type of normalcy. We might see maybe in a few years a move back to the cities. Who knows? But that's what's happening right now. But it's both, again, a financial decision and also a very personal one. All right, so let's lower that down. Let's get me back on the screen. We'll close this out. I'm back here. And that should be it for this week. We're almost at a half hour. We'll have more things to talk about next week. And I think Leonard is getting my attention again. Leonard, what's going on?
Chris, great news. A very important person has called in to wish you the best on your live stream broadcast. He is an American actor, producer, and director who holds both American and Italian citizenship. He is particularly known for his collaborations with filmmaker Martin Scorsese. He is the recipient of various accolades, including 2 Academy Awards, a Golden Globe Award, the Cecil B. DeMille Award, and a Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award. In 2009, he received the Kennedy Center Honor, and in 2016, he received a Presidential Medal of Freedom from U.S. President Barack Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert De Niro.
Hi, Mr. De Niro. Is that you?
Who's this?
It's Chris Garzullo.
Yeah, can I help you?
Thanks for calling in. Have you watched the show?
Yes, I did.
What are your thoughts?
Could you at least try maybe to consider another profession?
Mr. De Niro. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for watching the show today. And remember, be safe, be careful, wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart. It looks like a nice day, a little windy, a little chilly. Enjoy, and we'll see you next week. Be well.